Please like and subscribe to the channel if you find this video interesting. Enjoy watching the video. Commander Aris Thorne, a man whose life had been a meticulously calibrated journey from simulator to Starship Command, felt a familiar hum of anticipation in his gut. It wasn't the raw, youthful excitement of a rookie, but the seasoned thrill of a professional at the precipice of the unknown. His vessel, the Odyssey VI, a gleaming testament to human ingenuity and a veritable tin can in the vast cosmic ocean, was nearing designation point Kepler 186f. This exoplanet, nestled comfortably within its star's habitable zone, had been broadcasting an anomaly for the past 3 cycles, a complex, rhythmic signal that defied natural explanation. It was, in all likelihood, the universe's way of saying, "Hello. Anyone out there?" And Aris Thorne was about to answer. "Proximity alert, Commander," chirped Ensign Eva Rostova from the navigation console, her voice a calm counterpoint to the subtle tremor that ran through the ship as they transitioned into orbital insertion. Atmospheric composition confirmed within predicted parameters. Trace biosignatures detected. Aris nodded, his gaze fixed on the main view screen. Kepler 186f bloomed before them, a swirling tapestry of emerald greens and azure blues, occasionally punctuated by vast, ochre-tinted continents. It looked habitable, almost inviting. Far too picturesque for the kind of cosmic curveball Aris half expected. His extensive training had prepared him for everything from aggressive gaseous entities to sentient crystalline structures, but never for anything that might actually wave back. "Prepare for probe deployment," Aris commanded, his voice steady. "Standard protocol. Passive observation only until we have a clearer understanding of the signal's origin. No direct contact unless absolutely necessary, and only with full biohazard containment." The probe, a sophisticated drone bristling with sensors and imaging equipment, detached with a soft thud and began its descent, a tiny metallic bird heading into an unknown nest. Hours passed in a tense, meticulous ballet of data analysis. The signal, once a distant echo, grew clearer, revealing intricate mathematical patterns and harmonic structures. It wasn't just a beacon, it was a sophisticated transmission, almost a language. "Commander, the probe has located the source," Eva announced, her fingers flying across her console. "It's a structure. Non-natural. Massive. And there appears to be activity." The view screen zoomed in, revealing an enormous, elegant edifice rising from a lush, bioluminescent forest. It was unlike anything humanity had ever conceived: flowing lines, organic curves, and an ethereal glow that seemed to be powered by the very flora surrounding it. And then, a figure emerged. It was undeniably humanoid, but alien in every conceivable way. Tall and slender, with skin that shimmered with iridescent scales and large, luminous eyes that held an intelligence Aris could feel even through the pixelated transmission. She moved with an effortless grace, her limbs fluid, almost liquid. Her head was adorned with delicate, fern-like tendrils that pulsed faintly with light, and she wore a garment woven from what appeared to be living bioluminescent fibers. She was, in a word, breathtakingly alien. "She's beautiful," whispered Lieutenant Commander Jax, the xenolinguist, momentarily forgetting protocol. "And potentially hostile, Jax," Aris reminded him, though even he felt a strange pull. "Hold positions. Eva, can you isolate any outgoing transmissions from her vicinity?" Before Eva could respond, the alien figure stopped. Her luminous eyes, even through the distortion of the long-distance transmission, seemed to lock directly onto the probe. A moment of absolute, heart-stopping stillness descended upon the bridge. Then, with a gesture as elegant as it was swift, she extended a hand. A beam of pure, shimmering energy, not destructive but probing, lanced out from her palm, enveloping the human probe. The probe didn't explode. It didn't short out. It simply vanished. Not disintegrated, but phased out of existence, as if plucked from their reality. "Commander, the probe is gone," Eva exclaimed, her composure finally cracking. "All sensor readings indicate a complete cessation of existence." Aris felt a cold knot tighten in his stomach. This wasn't a primitive civilization. This was something far beyond their current technological understanding. Before he could issue a command, before he could even draw another breath, the main view screen flickered. The image of Kepler 186f dissolved, replaced by a dizzying kaleidoscope of colors and patterns. A piercing, high-frequency resonance vibrated through the ship, through the very bones of the crew. It wasn't sound, it was an energy pulse, a wave of pure, concentrated information that bypassed their instruments and went straight for their minds. Aris felt a jolt, as if he'd been struck by lightning. His vision swam, his ears rang, and a sensation unlike any he'd ever experienced, a wrenching, tearing feeling as if his very essence was being stretched and rewoven, consumed him. He blacked out. He awoke to a bewildering array of sensations. The air felt different, thicker, yet lighter. His limbs felt strangely elongated, exquisitely sensitive. He opened his eyes, expecting to see the familiar steel bulkheads of the Odyssey VI, but instead was met with a vibrant, living architecture, pulsating with soft, internal light. He was no longer in his command chair. He was suspended, gently, in a fluid-filled chamber, surrounded by unfamiliar glowing conduits. A quick, instinctive glance downwards sent a jolt of sheer terror through him that transcended all his training. His hands. They weren't his. They were slender, multi-jointed, covered in the same iridescent scales he had seen on the alien woman. His reflection, caught in a polished, obsidian-like surface nearby, confirmed the horrifying truth. Those luminous, multifaceted eyes, those delicate fern-like tendrils, that slender, scaled body, it was her. He was in the alien's body. And somewhere, he knew with a terrifying certainty, she was in his. Aris Thorne, or rather, the consciousness of Aris Thorne trapped within the iridescent, scaled form of an unknown alien, experienced a moment of existential crisis so profound it momentarily eclipsed all rational thought. He tried to speak, to utter a command, to demand an explanation, but what emerged was a series of clicks and whistles, a melodious cascade of sounds utterly foreign to his human vocal cords. Panic, cold and raw, clawed at his throat, a throat that now felt distinctly cartilaginous and internal, not the muscular tube he was accustomed to. He tried to move, to thrash, to do something, but his new limbs responded with an unnerving grace and fluidity that defied his intentions. A simple attempt to clench a fist resulted in a delicate, almost balletic curl of multi-jointed digits. His center of gravity felt entirely different, his proprioception a chaotic jumble of alien input. It was like trying to operate a complex machine with an instruction manual written in a language he didn't understand. The fluid in the chamber, warm and viscous, gently supported him. He pushed against its surface, intending to rise, but instead found himself performing an effortless, serpentine glide that brought him face to face with his reflection again. The luminous, multifaceted eyes blinked. His eyes now. He watched in morbid fascination as the delicate fern-like tendrils on his head pulsed with a soft, internal light, responding to some unseen biological imperative. He felt a faint, pleasant warmth emanate from them, as if they were drawing energy from the ambient light. A new set of sensations flooded his awareness, the rhythmic thrum of the living architecture around him, not just heard but felt as a vibration in his new skeletal structure, a subtle, sweet scent in the air, complex and earthy, and a faint, almost subliminal choir of soft, high-pitched tones that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. He realized with a jolt that his new senses were far more acute, more integrated with his environment than his human ones had ever been. He was perceiving reality on a whole new bandwidth. He focused, pushing past the panic. Think, Thorne. Analyze. Adapt. His training, drilled into him since cadet days, slowly reasserted itself. Step 1. Assess the situation. He was in an alien body, in an alien environment. He needed to understand where he was, what this body could do, and, crucially, what had happened to his body. He mentally reviewed the last moments before the blackout, the alien's energy beam, the ship-wide resonance, the feeling of being torn apart and rewoven. It wasn't an attack in the conventional sense. It felt like an exchange. A very, very unwilling exchange. He cautiously attempted another movement. This time, he focused not on forcing the body, but on intending the movement, letting the alien physiology take over. He willed himself to move towards the edge of the chamber. His new limbs, long and elegant, propelled him with a shocking efficiency. He broke the surface of the fluid, gasping, or rather, making a series of resonant clicks as the thicker, external air met his new respiratory organs. He didn't feel the burning in his lungs he expected. Instead, a faint, sweet taste filled his mouth and his tendrils pulsed more brightly. Breathing seemed effortless, almost a pleasure. He carefully exited the chamber, finding himself on a smooth, slightly yielding floor that felt warm beneath his scaled feet. The room was vast, circular, with gentle alcoves filled with glowing, organic machinery and what appeared to be holographic displays shimmering with complex alien script. The walls were alive, softly breathing, and he could feel faint energy currents running through them. He spotted a reflective surface, a large, dark panel that seemed to absorb and re-emit light, and approached it cautiously. His reflection stared back. The alien woman. His captor, his new self. He observed the graceful curves of his new spine, the way his head tendrils twitched and swayed, the deep, luminous pools of his eyes. He tried to mimic a human expression, a frown, a look of concern, but the alien face remained serene, almost impassive. He realized with a pang that this body didn't express emotion in the same way. What would a human look of panic translate to on this face? A subtle shift in the tendrils? A change in the iridescence of the scales? He reached out a multi-jointed hand, touching the reflective surface. It felt smooth, cool, almost alive. As his fingers made contact, the surface rippled, and the alien script on the nearby holographic displays shifted, new patterns forming, lines of data scrolling past. He instinctively recoiled, but the system seemed to have registered his presence, his touch. Was it biometric? Or something more complex, responding to his new alien physiology? His communicator, his actual human communicator, was still clipped to his human uniform, back on the Odyssey VI. His brain was screaming at him to hail the ship, to tell Eva and Jax what had happened, to get help. But he knew, with a chilling certainty, that his human voice was gone. And even if he could somehow articulate the sounds this body produced, would they understand him? Would they even recognize him? He was no longer Aris Thorne, commander of the Odyssey VI. He was a magnificent, iridescent, utterly alien creature. The humor of the situation, grim and gallows-esque, finally struck him. All his years of training, all the meticulous preparation for hostile encounters, aggressive negotiations, or even peaceful scientific exchange, and he was completely unprepared for this, an involuntary, irreversible body swap with an extraterrestrial. His life, his mission, his very identity had been irrevocably scrambled. He was an astronaut without a suit, a commander without a crew, a human without a body. He took a slow, deep breath, tasting the sweet, clean alien air. His tendrils pulsed. His scales shimmered. He had to figure this out. For his crew, for humanity, and perhaps most importantly, for the sheer, unadulterated absurdity of it all. He had to learn how to be an alien. Aris, in his alien guise, took his first tentative steps beyond the chamber, the alien architecture flowing seamlessly from one area to the next. The structure was a marvel of bioengineering, every surface seemingly alive, subtly pulsating, glowing with an internal light source. There were no sharp corners, no hard edges. Everything was organic, fluid, and profoundly integrated. He passed through what appeared to be corridors, the walls parting silently as he approached, as if sensing his presence. His new body moved with an innate grace, a natural fluidity that was both exhilarating and deeply unsettling. He felt lighter, stronger, and possessed of a sensory array that bombarded him with data his human brain struggled to interpret. He could perceive subtle energy fluctuations in the air, taste the varying chemical compositions of the atmospheric currents, and hear a symphony of low-frequency hums and high-pitched chimes that seemed to be the internal workings of the alien facility itself. It was overwhelming, like trying to drink from a fire hose of information. His human mind, accustomed to filtering out background noise, was now forced to process everything. He had to consciously try and narrow his focus, something his new alien brain seemed to do effortlessly. He soon found himself in a vast, cavernous space that reminded him of a botanical garden, but one engineered by a species that viewed plants as active participants in their technology. Towering, crystalline structures intertwined with gigantic, bioluminescent flora, all humming with a soft, resonant energy. Small, winged creatures, like living jewels, flitted between the glowing branches. This wasn't just a place, it was an ecosystem, a meticulously balanced biome integrated into the very fabric of their civilization. "All right, Thorne," he muttered, the clicks and whistles of his alien throat producing a bizarre echo in the enormous space. "New body, new rules. What are you capable of?" He remembered the energy beam the alien had used to phase out the probe. He concentrated, trying to replicate the gesture. He extended a multi-jointed hand, focusing his intent, but nothing happened. He furrowed his brow, or at least tried to. His tendrils merely quivered slightly. Frustration, a very human emotion, bubbled within him. He was a commander, trained to take charge, and now he couldn't even control his own hands. Then, he noticed something. As his frustration intensified, a faint, almost imperceptible shimmer radiated from his scales, and the tendrils on his head pulsed with a slightly brighter light. It was subtle, but it was there. His emotions, it seemed, had a visible, biological manifestation. Perhaps the energy projection wasn't a learned skill, but an intrinsic, emotionally triggered ability, or perhaps it was a more advanced function tied into the technological infrastructure. He needed data. He needed to understand. His attention was drawn to a series of glowing symbols on a nearby organic console. He cautiously approached, remembering how his touch had affected the reflective panel earlier. He extended a finger, hovering it over a symbol. As he did, the symbol flared with light, and a holographic image materialized in the air, a complex schematic of the very structure he was in, detailed with energy conduits and biological processes. He touched another symbol, and the schematic shifted, zooming in on a particular section. This was it. This was how they interfaced with their technology. It wasn't about buttons or keyboards, it was about touch, perhaps even thought, mediated through their unique physiology. He experimented, touching various symbols, and watched as holographic data streams flowed and merged, revealing insights into power generation, atmospheric regulation, and what appeared to be a complex communication network. He recognized, with a jolt of recognition, a familiar star map projected amongst the alien symbols. It was the Kepler 186 system. And there, orbiting Kepler 186f, was a faint, glowing dot. The Odyssey VI. His ship. A surge of hope, followed by a wave of trepidation, washed over him. He was still connected. The ship was still there. But what was happening on the ship? Who was in his body, giving the orders? Meanwhile, aboard the Odyssey VI, the alien now inhabiting Commander Aris Thorne's body was experiencing a very different kind of awakening. She, for the consciousness now residing in Aris's human form was indeed the alien female, awoke with a jolt that sent a strange, almost sickening lurch through her new internal organs. The air felt thin, dry, and permeated with a harsh, metallic tang that grated on her hypersensitive alien senses. Her perception of the ship was initially a cacophony of jarring sounds, the low thrum of the engines, the artificial hiss of air purifiers, the faint crackle of comms chatter. It was a brutal assault compared to the organic symphony of her home. Her new limbs felt heavy, clumsy, almost brittle. She tried to move her hand, a strangely pale, five-fingered appendage, and it responded with a dull, ungraceful tremor. The body was fragile, weak. It felt deadened, lacking the vibrant, interconnected life force she was accustomed to. The uniform, a stiff, synthetic fabric, chafed against her new skin, which felt strangely vulnerable and exposed without her protective scales. She became aware of her face, a bizarrely featureless plane compared to her own multifaceted ocular organs and intricate tendrils. She tried to access the deep, resonant perception of her tendrils, to taste the energy currents around her, but found only dull, unresponsive flesh. Her eyes, single orb-like structures, offered only a narrow, two-dimensional view of the world, devoid of the vibrant spectral ranges she was used to. This was a profoundly limited existence. She sat up, a grunt escaping her new throat, a sound that grated on her own alien ears. The chair she was in felt hard and unyielding. She looked around the bridge, a stark, utilitarian space of cold metal and flashing lights. Strange, glowing rectangles displayed incomprehensible symbols, and the air was filled with the faint, unsettling scent of processed nutrients and human biowaste. "Commander," a voice chirped. The sound was loud, sharp, almost painful to her delicate alien hearing. She turned her head, a strangely heavy orb on a stiff neck, towards the source. A small, pale human female sat at a console, her eyes wide with concern. This was one of the crewmates. "Commander, are you all right?" Ensign Rostova asked again, noticing Aris's unusual silence and stiff posture. "You blacked out for a moment there. Scanners are showing some residual energy fluctuations, but your vitals are stable." The alien in Aris's body blinked. "Vitals? Stable?" The words were foreign, but the intent was clear. This human was trying to communicate. She had somehow acquired the language of these beings during the exchange, just as Aris had acquired hers. But understanding the words was one thing, comprehending the nuances of human interaction, the social cues, the emotional subtext, was another entirely. She tried to speak, to explain, to ask what this fragile, uncomfortable vessel was. But her mouth felt stiff, her tongue thick. What emerged was a garbled, guttural sound, barely recognizable as human speech. What is this? Fragile? Ensign Rostova's eyes widened further. "Commander? Your voice. Are you having trouble with your comms unit?" She reached for a panel, concern etched on her face. The alien felt a surge of confusion, and then a strange, unfamiliar sensation. A deep, hollow ache in her chest. She realized, with a profound sense of horror, that this was the human's emotion called fear. She was trapped. Trapped in a weak, clumsy, sensory-deprived body, surrounded by these loud, aggressive, yet seemingly well-meaning creatures. This human vessel was a prison, and she had to find a way out. Back on the alien structure, Aris Thorne, still grappling with his shimmering, scaled form, was beginning to make breakthroughs. He discovered that his tendrils weren't just decorative, they were highly sensitive sensory organs, capable of detecting minute changes in air pressure, temperature, and even the subtle electromagnetic fields generated by the alien technology. He could feel the network of conduits humming beneath the organic floor. More importantly, he learned that his emotional state directly influenced his abilities. Anger, frustration, or intense focus could trigger faint energy discharges, while a state of calm concentration allowed him to interface more smoothly with the holographic interfaces. He stood before a display showing the Odyssey VI, a tiny speck in the vastness of space. He knew the ship's internal layout, its systems, its crew. Now, if only he could communicate with it. He tried focusing on the image of the ship, willing a message, any message, to cross the void. He extended a multi-jointed hand, mimicking the alien's earlier gesture, and concentrated with every fiber of his being. His tendrils flared, his scales shimmered violently, and a faint, high-pitched whine emanated from his throat. Suddenly, a pulse of energy shot from his palm, not as powerful as the original alien's, but strong enough to cause a localized ripple in the surrounding bioluminescent flora. The holographic display flickered, then settled, showing a magnified view of the Odyssey VI's bridge. He saw Ensign Rostova, Jax, and another crewmate, looking concerned. And in the commander's chair, himself. Or rather, the alien in his body. The alien was trying to operate the comms console, her slender, multi-jointed fingers, which were now his human fingers, fumbling awkwardly with the familiar buttons and touchscreens. She looked utterly bewildered, her brow furrowed in a way Aris had never seen his own face contort. It was a bizarre, almost comical sight, his own stoic, professional face twisted into an expression of alien confusion. "She's having trouble," Aris clicked, a strange mix of relief and exasperation filling him. Relief that she wasn't some hostile entity immediately taking over his ship, exasperation that she was probably making a mess of things. She can't even work a comms panel. The irony was not lost on him. He, Commander Aris Thorne, was currently an alien fumbling with alien tech, while an alien fumbled with human tech in his own body. A thought struck him. If he could see the ship, could he send a message? Not through the comms. That was clearly beyond her current capabilities, but through the same energy that caused the swap? He focused again, picturing his voice, his human voice, speaking to Ensign Rostova. He concentrated on the bridge, on the feeling of his human body, on the desire to communicate. He extended his hand, and this time, the energy pulse felt more controlled, less wild. It was still clicks and whistles from his throat, but in his mind, he was speaking English. Aboard the Odyssey VI, the alien was in a state of growing agitation. The human body was frustratingly inefficient. It tired easily, its senses were dull, and its attempts at complex manipulation were pitiful. She had tried to access the ship's information network, what the humans called computers, but the interface was crude, requiring precise physical input rather than the intuitive mental linkage she was used to. The buttons and screens felt unresponsive, lifeless. She was also finding human communication incredibly taxing. Their language was a jumble of harsh phonemes and subtle inflections, often accompanied by bizarre facial contortions that seemed to convey layers of meaning she couldn't grasp. "Commander, are you experiencing spatial disorientation?" Jax asked, ever the pragmatic xenolinguist, trying to apply his training to Aris's bizarre behavior. "Perhaps a post-hyperspace anomaly affecting your equilibrium?" The alien tried to nod, but her new neck felt stiff. She settled for a slow, jerky movement that probably looked like a stroke victim trying to agree. "No, clumsy." She managed to articulate, the word feeling strange and heavy on her human tongue. "Clumsy?" Eva repeated, exchanging a worried glance with Jax. "Sir, are you sure you're okay? Maybe you should head to sickbay. You've been acting differently since we engaged the alien signal." The alien felt a wave of despair. These humans were clearly worried, but she couldn't explain. She couldn't tell them she was an advanced being trapped in their primitive shell. She couldn't tell them their real commander was probably somewhere on the alien planet, feeling just as confused. She needed to reestablish the connection, to reverse the exchange. But how? This body offered no such capabilities. Just as she was contemplating banging her new head against the console in frustration, a surprisingly strong human impulse, she noted, a strange sensation passed through her. It was subtle, like a faint whisper in the back of her mind, but it was unmistakably familiar. A resonance. An energy signature. And it was coming from her. Or rather, Aris's former body. Then, a flicker on the main view screen. A complex series of symbols, alien yet strangely geometric, appeared over the image of Kepler, 186F. They rapidly shifted, then formed a crude, yet undeniably deliberate sequence. It was a message. Not words, but concepts. The alien watched, her new human eyes widening. The symbols coalesced into an image, a representation of two figures, one human, one alien, touching. Then, they dissolved and reformed, showing the human figure in the alien's position and the alien figure in the human's. It was a visual explanation, clear as day. "What in the blazes is that?" Jax exclaimed, leaning forward. "A pictographic message?" From the alien structure. Eva, ever the quick thinker, began running the visual through their xenolinguistics database. "It's a symbolic representation of a body swap, sir. They're telling us, you've switched bodies with one of them." The alien in Aris's body felt a strange mix of relief and growing horror. Relief that the other one was communicating, horror that these humans now knew her predicament. She tried to respond, to explain that it was an accident, a mutual disservice, but all that came out was a high-pitched, frustrated whine that was decidedly not Commander Thorne. The crew stared, utterly perplexed. The alien sighed, a deep, rattling sound in Aris's lungs. This was going to be a long, difficult mission. She, the proud xenobiologist of her people, was now a human, and a very clumsy one at that. She briefly wondered if this was what the humans referred to as karma. For Aris Thorne, now navigating the alien facility in a body of iridescent scales and tendrils, the initial terror had begun to morph into a peculiar blend of scientific fascination and exasperated frustration. He was making progress with the alien technology, understanding that their interfaces responded not just to touch, but to subtle shifts in bioelectrical energy and, remarkably, intent. He could now call up schematics, access their databanks, though the language barrier remained formidable, and even manipulate some minor environmental controls with a focused thought. He could even project small, harmless energy pulses on command, a skill that promised to be useful, or at least amusing, if he could ever manage to aim it properly. His immediate goal was to find a way to reverse the swap. He spent hours, or what he perceived as hours, alien timekeeping was another enigma, sifting through holographic archives, looking for anything resembling a reversal protocol or a body swap undo button. He discovered their civilization was profoundly integrated with their environment, viewing technology as an extension of biology. Their ships were living organisms, their computers complex neural networks of engineered flora. The concept of discrete, portable devices like his human communicator seemed utterly foreign to them. One of the most challenging aspects, however, was simply existing in this body. His new digestive system was entirely different, processing the faint nutrient-rich gases in the air, but he still felt a strange, lingering phantom hunger for solid food. His new sleep cycle, if it could be called that, involved entering a semi-conscious state where his tendrils pulsed intensely and his body absorbed ambient light. He missed the simple comfort of a bed, the familiar rhythm of human respiration. He also had to contend with the constant, overwhelming sensory input. Every texture, every subtle air current, every infinitesimal shift in energy fields was perceived with vivid intensity. It was like living with every dial turned up to 11. He learned to filter, to focus, to consciously dampen certain inputs, a mental discipline that was slowly reshaping his human consciousness. He found moments of unexpected beauty, too, the way light refracted through his scales, the silent communication of the living architecture, the profound sense of interconnectedness with the alien world. All right, let's try this again, he clicked, standing before a complex diagram of what appeared to be their primary energy resonator. He focused his intent, extending a multi-jointed hand, trying to replicate the intricate energy pattern he'd observed in the alien's original beam. He felt a surge of power, his tendrils flared brightly, and a small, perfectly formed energy sphere coalesced above his palm. He held it, amazed, before it dissipated harmlessly. Got it. Now, how to aim it? Meanwhile, aboard the Odyssey VI, the alien was enduring a crash course in human survival, and it was going poorly. Her human body was a constant source of discomfort and confusion. The ship's gravity felt like a crushing weight, making her movements ponderous and tiring. The bland, nutrient-paced humans called food was utterly repugnant to her refined alien palate, and the water they drank felt like a shock to her system. Her head ached constantly from the harsh, artificial lighting and the ceaseless clamor of human machinery and voices. Her attempts to blend in, to mimic Commander Thorne, were met with varying degrees of concern and suppressed amusement from the crew. Her attempts to walk normally resulted in an ungainly shuffle, as she hadn't yet mastered the delicate balance required for bipedal locomotion. She kept bumping into bulkheads, knocking over equipment, and generally radiating an aura of profound bewilderment. "Commander, are you sure you don't want to lie down?" Ensign Rostova asked for the 10th time that morning, watching in mild alarm as Aris struggled to open a simple storage locker. "That's the emergency rations locker, sir, not the comms array." The alien grunted, her human face flushing with something that felt disturbingly like embarrassment. "No, primitive, box. She pointed a clumsy human finger at the console. Need, connection. She was trying to convey the urgent need to reverse the swap, to re-establish the energy link that had caused the exchange. Jax, ever patient, tried to decipher her meaning. You mean you need to contact the alien structure? We've been trying, sir, but we're only getting intermittent, fragmented signals. They seem to be different. Like an emotional frequency rather than a data stream. The alien in Aris's body paused, her human eyes widening slightly. Emotional frequency. That made sense. Her people communicated on multiple layers, including empathic and energetic signals. The commander's mind, trapped in her body, was likely trying to communicate on that deeper level, a level these humans couldn't fully comprehend with their crude instruments. Her own attempts to communicate using human methods were disastrous. She tried to explain complex alien concepts, but her limited human vocabulary and clumsy vocal cords rendered her explanations into a series of broken phrases and bizarre metaphors. The living web needs to reweave the spark. She gestured wildly, bumping her human hand against a flashing warning light. Sir, you just activated the emergency purge sequence for Sector Gamma. Eva exclaimed, scrambling to override the command. What are you doing? The alien recoiled, her human heart pounding with a sudden, unfamiliar terror. She hadn't meant to do that. This body was a constant liability, a source of endless unintended consequences. She wanted to weep, but the human tear ducts seemed stubbornly unresponsive. The only thing she could manage was a frustrated growl, distinctly unthorn-like. Later, observing herself in a reflective panel, she practiced human expressions. She tried a smile, but it looked like a grimace. A frown made her look constipated. She discovered that human emotions were expressed with an unnerving subtlety, relying on tiny muscle movements and eye contact, things her people didn't use. She felt like an actor in a play she didn't understand, wearing a costume that was fundamentally uncomfortable. She also discovered the peculiar human ritual of eating. She had tried the nutrient paste, found it vile. Then she spotted Jax eating something that looked like a sandwich. It was a strange concoction of processed grain and some kind of synthetic meat. He offered her a bite. She hesitated, then, driven by a strange, alien curiosity, took a small piece. The taste was surprisingly complex. Salty, savory, and utterly foreign. It was still primitive compared to the delicate energy transfers she was used to, but it was interesting. She cautiously took another bite. Perhaps, she mused, there were some small advantages to this clumsy, vulnerable form. But she still longed for the familiar hum of her own body, the elegant dance of her tendrils, the freedom of her own senses. She needed to reestablish the connection. For the commander, and for her own sanity. Aris Thorne, now a shimmering alien, had begun to adapt with remarkable speed. His human capacity for problem-solving and his military discipline were serving him well. He'd meticulously mapped out the sections of the alien facility he could access, identifying what he now understood to be communication hubs, energy conduits, and even a sprawling biofabrication chamber where new organic components were grown. He even managed to figure out the alien equivalent of a recreational area, which involved communal light baths and intricate, rhythmic energy dances that seemed to recharge their biological systems. He discreetly avoided participating, opting instead to observe, occasionally sending out experimental energy pulses in the hope of connecting with his ship. His attempts at direct communication with the Odyssey VI were still yielding fragmented results. He realized that the alien body, while capable of generating powerful energy, lacked the precise modulation required for human radio transmissions. Instead, his emotional states, amplified by his new physiology, were creating ripples in the local energy field that his ship's xenolinguist, Jax, was now interpreting as emotional frequencies. It was a clumsy, indirect form of communication, but it was something. He found an alien archive that detailed their species' history and their advanced understanding of bioenergetic transference. He spent what felt like days, absorbing information through touch-sensitive panels, piecing together the puzzle of the swap. Their species, the Lumina, communicated largely through resonant energy fields and shared consciousness, making physical contact for complex interactions not uncommon. The exchange had likely been an accidental side effect of her attempt to probe their ship's core energy signature, a misunderstanding of human and alien biological interaction. It wasn't an attack, it was a cosmic misfire. So he clicked, a sigh that resonated strangely in his alien throat. She wasn't trying to destroy the probe. She was trying to understand it. And she understood it by swapping bodies with me. The sheer, unfathomable absurdity of it all still made his human brain ache, but his alien body felt a strange, detached curiosity. He discovered that the Lumina had a concept called essence exchange, a rare and powerful ritual used for deep understanding between individuals, requiring immense focus and mutual consent. The accidental contact with the Odyssey VI's energy signature, combined with his own bioelectrical field and the Lumina's curious probe, had created a forced, one-way, from their perspective, essence exchange. It was a spectacular, and spectacularly inconvenient, accident. He found a chamber containing a large, intricate energy matrix, a series of crystalline resonators and glowing conduits that pulsed with immense power. This, he realized, was the origin point of the exchange. He started to formulate a plan. If the exchange was a two-way street, initiated by this matrix, then perhaps it could be reversed here. He began to study the complex energy flows, the modulation patterns, the precise sequence of resonance required. It was like trying to reprogram an alien supercomputer using only his intuition and a hastily acquired understanding of their biological engineering. Aboard the Odyssey VI, the alien, whom the crew had mentally, and sometimes audibly, begun referring to as Aris, was making her own reluctant progress. She had learned to manipulate the human body with slightly less clumsiness, though grace was still a distant concept. She could now operate most of the ship's basic functions, albeit slowly and methodically, often requiring verbal guidance from Eva or Jax. Her attempts at communication were still fractured, but she was slowly building a functional, if rudimentary, human vocabulary. She had also started to understand the human crew. Their constant chatter, their strange emotional outbursts, their reliance on external technology rather than internal biology, it was all beginning to make a strange kind of sense. She observed Eva's meticulous dedication, Jax's analytical curiosity, and the unwavering loyalty of the crew. They were a fragile species, physically, but their collective spirit, their ingenuity, and their capacity for complex empathy were qualities she found both bewildering and fascinating. She had also developed a peculiar fondness for the sandwich. It was still barbaric compared to her own species' methods of sustenance, but the combination of textures and flavors was a novel experience. She found herself craving it, a strange, new human impulse. "Commander," Jax said gently, approaching Aris as she meticulously, and very slowly, typed a command into the navigation console. "We've been getting clearer, emotional signals from the planet. They seem to be conveying urgency and a sense of a structured process. It's almost like they're trying to send us instructions." Aris stopped, her human hands hovering over the keys. Instructions. Yes, that would be the commander. He was trying to communicate the reversal protocol. She knew, with an intuitive certainty, that he would be trying to find a way back. She turned to Jax, her human eyes conveying a rare flash of focused intent. Reweave the spark." She paused, searching for the human words. "He needs energy." She pointed emphatically at the ship's main power core diagram on a nearby screen. "Big flow." Eva frowned. "He needs energy? Are you saying he needs us to send power to the alien structure?" Aris nodded vigorously, her human head bobbing awkwardly. "Yes. Return the spark." She then gestured towards the main view screen, where the image of the alien facility now pulsed faintly. "Here. Connection." Jax and Eva exchanged glances. The idea of sending a massive energy surge to an unknown alien structure was highly risky. It could be an attack, a trap. But the commander's unusual conviction, coupled with the increasingly coherent, emotional signals, was compelling. What if it's a trick? Eva whispered to Jax. What if this isn't Aris? Aris alien caught the word trick. She felt a strange pang in her human chest, an unfamiliar feeling of being misunderstood, of being mistrusted. She tried to convey truth, sincerity, but her human face was so limited in its expressions. She knew she had to convince them. The commander would be counting on her. She walked over to a blank console and, with surprising focus, began to draw with her finger on the dusty surface. Crude, simple lines, but unmistakable. She drew 2 circles, representing the human and the alien. Then, she drew a line between them, then an arrow pointing back the other way, and finally, a symbol that meant reversal in her native thought language, rendered in basic human geometry. She then pointed back at the main power core, making an upward motion with her human hands. Jax and Eva stared at the drawing. It was childish, but clear. It was a request for power to reverse the exchange. And the way Aris had drawn it, it resonated with their understanding of the emotional signals. She wants us to activate a power surge from our core, Jax said slowly, and direct it towards the alien structure at a specific point. He looked at Eva. It's risky, but if it's Aris in there, and he's telling us how to get him back. Aris alien nodded again, her human eyes fixed on them, a silent plea in their depths. The reweaving of the spark. It was the only way. On the alien world, Aris Thorne, in his iridescent body, stood before the colossal energy matrix. He had meticulously studied the Lumina archives, piecing together fragments of information about essence exchange and its reversal. It wasn't a simple on-off switch. It required a precise alignment of biological and technological frequencies, a synchronized surge of energy from both sides, and a focused intent from the exchanged individuals. He understood now that the alien's probe had likely initiated a partial, accidental exchange, and reversing it would require a mirror image of that process, but with conscious, mutual effort. He had identified the precise crystalline conduit where the initial energy surge had originated. His new, alien senses were attuned to the humming power, feeling its intricate dance within the structure. His plan was audacious, to act as a living conduit himself, to modulate the Matrix's power with his own enhanced bioenergetic field, and to send a focused signal, hoping the Odyssey VI would respond with the reciprocal energy pulse. All right, Thorne, he clicked, his alien throat producing a low, resonant rumble. No pressure. Just save humanity and your own hide, with a body you can barely control, using technology you barely understand. He felt a surge of adrenaline, and his scales shimmered brighter, his tendrils pulsing like miniature lighthouses. He focused on the image of his ship, on the faces of his crew, and on the overwhelming desire to return to his own skin. He extended his multi-jointed hands towards the Matrix, letting the energy of the Lumina flow through him, ready to amplify and direct it. Aboard the Odyssey VI, the atmosphere on the bridge was a cocktail of high tension and bewildered anxiety. Aris Alien, standing stiffly in the commander's chair, was giving instructions to Eva and Jax, her voice a strained, broken attempt at human speech, punctuated by awkward gestures. Core, channel, energy. Here, she said, pointing a clumsy human finger at a holographic representation of the alien facility, specifically at the energy matrix Aris had identified. Big flow, now. Synchronize with him. Eva, her hands flying across her console, looked at Jax. She wants us to channel the main reactor output to a specific energy conduit on the alien structure. It's a massive power drain, Jax. If this goes wrong, we could fry our core and blow the ship to Kingdom Come. Jax, however, had seen the nuanced desperation in Aris Alien's eyes and felt the increasingly urgent emotional frequencies from the planet. She knows, Eva. He knows. He's asking for this. Calibrate the output. Prepare for synchronized release. On my mark. Aris Alien watched, her human heart pounding a rhythm she was still unused to. She remembered the sheer power of the initial exchange, the feeling of her essence being torn from her body. The reversal would require an equal and opposite force. She also knew the commander was relying on her understanding of their unique physiology, to guide the human technology. The irony was palpable. "Ready, Eva?" Jax asked, his hand hovering over the release command. "As I'll ever be, Jax," Eva replied, her voice tight. "Main core output at 98%. Graviton field stabilized for remote energy transfer. Calculating trajectory for maximum penetration." Aris Alien felt the subtle hum of the ship's reactor building, a vibration that resonated strangely in her human bones. She looked at the view screen, at the faint glow of the alien facility. She closed Aris Thorne's eyes and focused her own alien consciousness, reaching out for the subtle, emotional signature of the commander. She felt him, a focused, determined presence, a beacon of human will, modulating energy on the planet below. "Now," she commanded, her human voice surprisingly strong and clear, synchronized with a sudden, powerful mental surge she felt from the commander. Jax slammed his hand down on the release button. A colossal beam of raw energy, a shimmering blue lance, erupted from the Odyssey VI's primary emitter, streaking across the void towards Kepler 186f. It hit the alien structure's energy matrix with an invisible, resonating force. On the planet, Aris Thorne felt the surge. It was immense, a wave of familiar human energy crashing into the alien systems. He braced himself, letting the power flow through his body, using his Lumina physiology to precisely modulate the alien matrix's output. He was a conductor, orchestrating a cosmic symphony of energy. His scales shimmered violently, his tendrils pulsed with blinding light, and a powerful, high-pitched scream, half human terror, half alien strain, tore from his throat. The feeling was exactly as it had been before, but in reverse. A wrenching, tearing sensation, as if his very being was being stretched thin, pulled back across the vast distance, then snapped back into place. His vision swam, a kaleidoscope of blinding light and distorted images. He felt a sharp, burning pain, then a profound sense of rightness. He blacked out again. He awoke to the familiar dull ache of his own human muscles, the comforting thrum of the Odyssey VI's life support, and the dry, recycled air of his bridge. He opened his eyes. The steel bulkheads, the flashing lights of the consoles. And staring at him, wide-eyed with relief, were Ensign Rostova and Lieutenant Commander Jax. He looked down at his hands. 5 fingers. Pale, slightly calloused, unmistakably human. He tried to speak. "Eva?" "Jax." His voice was hoarse, but it was his voice. "Commander, you're back." Eva practically shrieked, tears welling in her eyes. Jax clapped him on the shoulder, a genuine smile breaking through his usual stoicism. Aris felt a wave of profound relief, so intense it made him lightheaded. He was back. In his own body. Then he remembered the alien. He looked towards his former position, the commander's chair. It was empty. "Where is she?" Aris asked, pushing himself up, feeling the familiar weight of his human body. Eva pointed to the main view screen. The image of Kepler 186f was clear. And there, rising from the structure, a delicate, shimmering light rose into the sky, streaking upwards, growing smaller, until it vanished into the vastness of space. She returned to her own body, Commander, Eva explained, wiping a tear from her eye. "We saw her. The light, it was her." Aris looked at the departing light, a strange sense of loss mingling with his relief. He had been an alien. He had walked among them, felt their world, understood their biology. And now she was back among her own. "Did she say anything?" Aris asked, almost afraid of the answer. Jax chuckled, a rare sound. Before she vanished, "Commander," she looked at the empty sandwich wrapper she'd been carrying around, then at us, then back at the wrapper. Then she made a noise that sounded suspiciously like a mournful sigh, and pointed to her mouth. Aris blinked. "She wanted a sandwich?" Eva giggled, genuinely. "We think so, sir." Or maybe she was just lamenting the loss of human cuisine. Aris Thorne, commander of the Odyssey VI, felt a faint smile touch his lips. He was back. And he had a feeling his life and his palate would never be quite the same again. Commander Aris Thorne settled back into his command chair, the familiar leather feeling both comforting and strangely restrictive after his stint as a graceful, iridescent alien. The Odyssey VI was charting a course away from Kepler 186f, leaving the vibrant, living alien structure to its silent hum. The relief on the bridge was palpable, a collective exhalation of breath that had been held for days. Yet, for Aris, and indeed for the entire crew, things were irrevocably changed. "Status report, Ensign Rostova," Aris commanded, his voice firm, but with an underlying tremor of experience that hadn't been there before. "All systems nominal, Commander," Eva replied, her smile radiant. "Ship integrity at 100%. No residual energy fluctuations detected. We're on course for rendezvous with the Explorer 7 in 3 cycles." "And the probe?" Eva's smile faltered slightly. "Still gone, sir. We believe it was completely absorbed into the alien's energy field during the initial contact." Aris nodded. A small price to pay for the return of his body and, arguably, the sanity of his crew. He closed his eyes for a moment, recalling the overwhelming sensory input of the Lumina. The feeling of light being absorbed by his skin, the chorus of internal hums, the ability to feel the energy of the world around him. He felt duller now. His human senses seemed muted, almost primitive. The artificial hum of the ship, once a comfort, now felt like a jarring cacophony compared to the organic symphony of the Lumina facility. He found himself subconsciously trying to flex muscles that no longer existed, to feel for tendrils that were no longer there. "Commander, are you all right?" Jax asked, observing him closely. "You seem a little distracted." Aris opened his eyes, a faint, almost imperceptible shimmer briefly passing over his irises, a phantom echo of the Lumina. "Just adjusting, Jax. It's not every day one gets to walk in another's scales." He paused, then added, "Lieutenant, begin compiling a full report on the Lumina. Focus on their bioenergetic capabilities, their communication methods, and especially their understanding of essence exchange. This is an unprecedented first contact. We need to learn everything." The crew, having witnessed the bizarre saga of Aris Alien firsthand, were grappling with their own adjustments. They treated Aris with a newfound reverence, a respect tinged with a slight, almost comical wariness. They'd seen their stoic commander fumble with basic controls, speak in broken sentences, and exhibit decidedly un-Thorne-like behavior. The incident had cracked open their perception of reality, revealing a universe far stranger and more interconnected than they had imagined. Later that evening, alone in his cabin, Aris found himself staring at his reflection. His own face. His own eyes. Yet, they seemed to hold a deeper, more profound understanding now. He reached out and touched the glass, remembering the way the Lumina interfaces had responded to his touch, to his intent. He closed his eyes and tried to sense the energy currents of the ship, tried to feel the faint hum of the reactor, the subtle vibrations in the deck plating. He felt nothing, not with the acute precision of his alien body. But he did feel something else. A phantom taste on his tongue, the delicate, earthy sweetness of the Lumina air, and a memory of overwhelming sensory input, a vividness that still resonated in the back of his mind. He would forever see the world differently, filtered through the lens of a species that experienced reality on a whole other frequency. He also found himself with a newfound, bizarre craving for a sandwich. He sighed, a distinctly human sound, and then chuckled. Meanwhile, light years away, on Kepler 186f, the Lumina xenobiologist had returned to her own magnificent, iridescent body. She felt the glorious rush of her tendrils absorbing ambient light, the vibrant hum of her internal organs, the profound interconnectedness with her living world. It was bliss. She reported her findings to her elders, describing the human experience. The fragility of their bodies, the harshness of their environment, their primitive technology, and their utterly baffling emotional expressions. She described their food, particularly the sandwich, with a lingering, almost wistful curiosity. "They are a species of remarkable resilience," she communicated to her elders, her energy field rippling with her experiences. Crude, yet ingenious. Emotionally volatile, yet deeply empathetic. Their commander possessed a formidable will, even in a body so lacking in sensory input. She showed them the data she had instinctively absorbed, the image of the Odyssey VI, the concept of human space travel, their aspirations. She explained the essence exchange as a shared, if accidental, learning experience. She also found herself, much to her own amusement, trying to make a human frown with her tendrils, a gesture that produced a rather comical twitch. And sometimes, when alone, she would instinctively reach for a piece of bioluminescent flora, then pause, remembering the texture and taste of the sandwich. She felt a strange, enduring connection to the distant, loud, yet fascinating human. The Lumina had sent a subtle, energetic thank you ripple across space as the Odyssey VI departed, a silent acknowledgement of the unexpected exchange. Back on the Odyssey VI, Aris Thorne sat in his chair, looking out at the endless starfield. His body was his own again, but his mind had expanded. He understood now that first contact wasn't just about sharing information, it was about sharing experience, even if that experience involved a terrifying and hilarious body swap. He was still Commander Aris Thorne, but he was also, in a very real sense, a little bit Lumina. And he knew, with a certainty deeper than any scientific data, that the universe was far more wondrous and far more connected than humanity had ever dared to imagine. The end.